I will always put the recording of the last session we had at the beginning of wherever the content starts for what we're talking about. So last Thursday, after we began doing 1A, I put that at the beginning here because that's where we began talking about chapter 1, which is just the idea of creating a worksheet and entering in data. And then we saw some functions that were commonly used with taking the sum. We saw how to change a theme, and we began working with the Home tab for the most part, looking at how to change things in the alignment and change the cell styles. Um, so today we're going to continue that and with finishing up the example we have for 1A and then beginning an example for project 1B. So I'll most likely put the recording for today in between here. So right before it says project 1A. So that way you'll have it all in one spot. Generally, people tend to ask, well, what do we do then since there's not going to be a practice for 1G? For following, so for Thursday, and then 1G would not be due until the following week. What I tend to do at that point is to leave it open for people to ask different questions. I try my best to go through 1G without doing it as well. So next week I'll do that. And when I say by going through it without doing it, I'm saying maybe showing examples of what something means. Sometimes it leads us just doing project 1A and 1B together. So I may ask one of you all to share your screen instead as we work through, and maybe you all can take turns sharing your screens. That way you kind of have like that group setting of working on those projects as well together. So, and if you all want, I can also come up with other examples. That is also available. I have some ready, but many times people don't want to be overwhelmed with too many. So, but just let me know. It won't really matter if you guys want more examples. I can do more examples, but I will continue after project 1B by going over things within 1G so that you guys can be prepared to be successful with this project, and then moving forward, we'll keep that same pattern. So, all right. Well, let's get to it then. So this is where we left off, and in case you guys do not recall, this is what project 1A looked like. And we were on objective 5. Yeah, there it is. So the part where we were gonna do now was to work on the trend lines that we saw. So again, we changed the theme. Everything was more of a bluish color before. And go back to making these be show tab and commands. So what I just did there was I noticed that it was still on auto hide, or sorry, it was on show tabs. So I changed that back to show tabs and commands because, as I told you all, I prefer that because I can see all the commands automatically. I don't have to go like hover up here to do it. It makes it easier for me to find them. But it was on show tabs, which meant it was only showing tabs. So we entered in data. We had Excel calculate for us. Right, it took the sum of these, and we can see that within here, within the formula directly. We took the sum by adding because you guys told me that's what that meant. It meant to add them up, which is correct. And then we saw how there was a built-in function within Excel called sum that will do that for us. And then we also saw how we could use the auto sum command, which is in the home tab. These are called tabs, just so you guys recall. Tabs are up here on the green ribbon. But a home tab, and we went to the editing group. Groups are named down here. So that's the font group, alignment group. We went to the editing group and used this auto sum command button here. We saw how to do that with the keyboard shortcut using Alt equals to take an auto sum, and that's what we did here, and it still gives the same formula. And we talked about different styles and number formats. So the different styles, we had a title style, we did a heading 1 style, and heading 4 styles for the sides. Those came from here. Oh, sorry. This came from here, cell styles. And we changed the number format of the data we entered using in the number format group using the accounting number format in the comma style. Again, these are so commonly used that they became command buttons because people use them all the time. And then accounting will give you the commas for every 3 place values, and it puts a decimal at the end, and it'll round it off to two decimals there. I'll put a $sign in front. So these two are in counting style, and the rest are in comma. And I told you guys comma style was the same, except it removes the $sign. And I also talked to you all about how the decimals are lined up here and the commas as well. It's kind of like when you were in school and you were first learning how to add things, you lined up the place values correctly, and then you lined up your decimals. That's exactly what Excel is doing here. It makes it easier to see. Also similar to that, whenever we take a total, we can do a total cell style, and above it, it puts this solid line. Can you go? Yeah, I can go over that. Above total cell style, it puts a solid line indicating that, hey, this is where my total goes, just like when you were adding. Yes. And at the end here, underneath total cell style, it puts 2 double lines indicating that that's your result. So I was asked to go over accounting and comma style again. So I would do so with just these. I'm going to change these back to general just so you guys can see how it's done. So accounting style, generally speaking, when you're working on a sheet that has money, and you're trying to balance it in some kind of way or to give details about it, so any kind of accounting workbook, for those of you that are in accounting, you probably actually will know this already, but your first line, you want to have $signs on. That indicates to the person that is reviewing it or if they're auditing it that you are dealing with money, in this case, American money. And yes, you could be an accountant and having to deal with others type of currencies, and Excel allows that to be handled. But what it'll do is it'll put the symbol for the currency in front. It will also move it so that it fits in the cell in a certain way. Notice how these guys are more to the left, and this is it's not centered, but it almost gives the appearance that it is centered. You can at least tell that it's been moved over some. Because of how often this is used, what Excel, or I should say Microsoft, did when they created Excel and made changes to it, is they made the number format for it. So how the number is formatted to appear on screen to us, or how any data actually is set to appear on the screen for us, can be changed and modified in number format. And notice how I said any data, because I wanted to emphasize that it's anything. If I type text in here, I can change that text to be a certain type of format. And that's very important to know, because it can be confusing to some people that it's called normal number format when it's not just about numbers. So if we look at the number group, you'll see that there's a number format drop down here. If you click that, there's all kinds of different things that are preset here. General is what things automatically go in as, and what general means is there's no specific format, but Excel will look and say, if you type nothing but numbers in, it'll say, okay, this is a number. I'm not going to change it to any format, but I'm going to know that this is a number. If you were to type any special characters or letters, it's going to assume it's text, but it's not going to say directly it's text. You can do that by selecting those things. But it is important for you to know that it's doing that, because that's going to change how it operates. For instance, if I had all numbers in here, but I said it was text, I wouldn't want it to add. And if I try to add with it, it would just become 0, because words have no numerical value. But if I were to try to take text as general and say it was a number, what will it do? It'll actually give you something. But it won't make sense, because that's not what you mean by it, right? So specifically, since we were asked about accounting and comma style, and those would be very commonly used for you, especially in this class and as you move forward, for those of you that are in accounting in your careers. But because of how common it is, we have these command buttons here. So that way we don't have to go up and click the drop down and go select it or anything. The 3 most common style changes are accounting style, or accounting number format, percent style, and comma style. And they have been given icons based off of what they do. So for instance, counting style, counting number format, if you were to select it, notice how it moves it again. Like I said, it kind of almost looks like it's being centered in a way, but it pushes it up a little bit, and then it adds commas. So if this was larger, like went to the millions, you would see another comma. So every three decimal places as you move up, you get that comma, and then for the at the end of it, after the ones place, you get that decimal, and we'll have those two decimals following. So even if you didn't have anything there, so just give you another example. Let's say I just had this, and I did this accounting style. It's going to put 2 zeros at the end because it's trying to demonstrate that it's money. And so we want to know how many dollars and cents we have. That was just an example. Here, get rid of that. Okay. For the others, so you usually want to do accounting at on the top layer and then on the bottom. That way, again, when someone's reading through this, as soon as they start at the first line, they say, "Oh, okay, this is money." And when they get to the bottom line, they say, "Okay, this must be the end of when I was dealing with my money." There are very rare times where you may have everything be accounting style going down. Like I said, that's very rare. Usually, you only want to put it at the front and at the bottom because it also starts taking up a lot of space. And it kind of gets ugly to look at. It's more aesthetic to have it in the first part and in the last part, so you can have a beginning and end. And so your mind will even read it as, oh, all of this must be dollar signs as well. So for the rest of this, we could select all of it. And so for practicing, I told you guys for selecting, you want to have the white cross. Press down your mouse key, and then you can drag to select the rest of them. I also showed you guys that you can use the name box up here in the corner and type in the cell address. Cell address again was what column and what row it's on. So that's E5. So I'm going to do E5. And then if I put a colon, that means that this is my first cell, and I'm going to put an ending cell, and it's going to get everything up to that point. So E5 to E7, and it'll automatically select it. So those were two of the three ways I showed you guys before for selecting cells. So if you just want to just use your keyboard, that's available too. So with this selected, if I held down Shift and just did the down arrow, it would highlight, it would select the rest. So these guys I'm going to make comma style. Notice again, they look exactly like accounting style. The only difference is the dollar sign's gone. Okay. Any questions there? Okay. All right. So we were on objective 5. Oh yeah, you're quite welcome. That's what I'm here for. So we were on objective 5 though, and so that has to do with taking the data we have and creating a chart. I'm going to show you guys two ways to visually see things in a graph. The first way that we're going to look at is we're going to create a chart, because that's probably the way that you guys are most used to anyway when dealing with Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, and then you guys can see from the instructions, again, you have this for script sheet lecture A. It says for us to select A3 to D7. The reason is we're going to make a chart based off of the fourth quarter. So I want to see what the sales look like in October, November, December, and then compare. I want to see what sales look like for New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Virginia, and compare. So by making a chart with this, I'm able to very easily see that. Well, there's nothing in A3. Why did I select A3? Because we're going to look at this chart based off of October, November, December versus what state it was in. Or we could look at this chart based off of what state it was in versus these 3 months. If I did not select A3, whenever we create the chart, Excel may get confused on what kind of chart we're trying to create, and it'll make more work for us. And I will show you that example after we do it correctly first. So we're selecting this a part of it, because you can also think of this as kind of like the pivot. This is the part where it changes between the states and the months. Right? So with that data selected, I'm going to insert a chart. To do so, I'm going to go to the Insert tab. Makes sense. I'm inserting something, right? If it did freeze, there it is. Okay. Um, there. Okay, so with this, on the insert tab, these are things that we can insert. We can insert tables. That's why there's a tables groups. Different types of illustrations. So if you need pictures, this is where you would do so. Add-ins, we'll talk about much later on. But these are like special things that you can get that allow you to do special functions within Excel. Charts, which is what we're going to be dealing with. Look at this, tours. Did you realize that you could create a tour within Excel? Create a 3D map tour. That's kind of cool, right? Sparklines, which we'll deal with shortly. Filters, these are different types of filters that you could use. And then like links, like hyperlinks, we'll do that in this course as well. And then text boxes and other types of ways to insert text. And then symbols, which we will not use. But these are different things we can insert. Of course, there are more things that we can insert, but these are the common things here. So the instructions say for us to go to the recommended charts. If you know what type of chart you want, for instance, I'll tell you that we're going to use a clustered column chart. Looking at these examples here and these icons, you might say, okay, well, this is a column. If I hover over, the screen tip will tell me that this is the insert combo chart. Well, I'm like, well, this is a column. And it says this is a statistics chart. And then I go over here. Oh, that's a column or a bar chart. Okay, this is probably the one I want to use, but maybe we're not sure. And then maybe you're trying to decide between should I use a pie chart for this data? Should I use a scatter plot? Should I use a line chart? And you're not quite sure which one to do. Well, the best thing to do then is to click recommended charts. And that's why this was given to you in instructions. Because generally speaking, recommended charts, what it does is it says, hey, let me take this data, and then based on how people usually use data that's structured in this way. So it sees how we have the different headings as well. Most people want to do this as a clustered column chart. And the reason why is because you're able to switch between the data really easily. You can switch between having your categories down here be the states and what's represented in each column be the months, or we could switch it the other way where the months would be up here as the categories and the states would be what's represented in the data for each column. So, but it puts the most common one up here at the top, and there are different ones after that that you can take a look at and see. In this case, we're just going to use the clustered column chart. I'll give you the title of the type of chart up here, and again, give you the example. If you want it to get real bold and crazy after that, you can click all charts here and go see all the different charts. And there are so many. Notice again here how the cluster column chart, there's two versions of it. How I talked about the categories and the legend switching. The categories are in this case, they're the months there at the bottom, and then the states at the bottom are the legends. Notice how they switch between these two. But in the example we got, our legends are the columns that we had here, and that's generally how it starts off. Again, you can make a change, as you guys saw, very easily between them. So I'm going to click OK. When I do that, it inserts it into a random spot, it seems. Generally, it will insert directly in the center of the cells that are currently viewed on the screen. I said generally. It also wants to try its best to put things close by, close to the data is there. There's an issue with where this is. The issue is that it is in the way, right? I can't see what's in total, and when we put something in the trend, I can't see that. So the best thing for us to do with this is to move this. I'm gonna move it out of the way for now. And we'll talk about where I moved it in a second. Moving on with the instructions, it says to change the chart title to fourth quarter sales commissions, which makes sense because that's what we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with fourth quarter sales commissions. Notice how I have selected the title. I just clicked on it once. If I began to type the fourth quarter sales commission, nothing is changing down here. I just typed. You guys probably could hear because of my microphone. You could probably hear me typing, but nothing changed here. But up in the formula bar, it did. Remember, last week, I talked about how when you make changes within a cell, you will see it change in the formula bar as well. Well, that's I said that was very important to remember because there will be times where you need to only make changes in the formula bar and not try to click around within the cells because it'll cause an error in what you want to do. In this case, here's another example where you're thinking you're typing something, you're like, I did something wrong. It's being typed. This is what's going to go here. And if I press enter or if I press enter, remember press enter means click on the keyboard or pressing the enter key. If I say click enter or the book says click enter, it's talking about this check mark next to the formula bar. In this case, it wouldn't matter, but I just want to reiterate that there's a difference between click enter and press enter. See, it did that perfectly fine. If I had wanted to, I could have double clicked within instead of single clicking, and then I can get in here with my insertion point and make changes. Right? I can type in. You would see it appear here. If I were to do that, see, I can type in there. But there's a difference between if you select it once, that's where it'll make the changes. You'll see it happen up here. If you double click inside, that's when you'll see it down here. I'm telling you that because I have had people email me before asking or telling me that something's wrong with their Excel because they can't change their title. And this is the issue that they're having. They don't see it. They don't look up at the formula bar to see that it's making a change there sometimes. So, all right. So moving on, we're going to do a lot with charts in future modules. But for now, this is what we have. So let's see. Use chart styles. Using chart styles, select style 6. So with our chart still selected, if you take a look at the ribbon, you will notice that some things have changed. We no longer have just our standard tabs here. We now have two other tabs, and you all may be able to see. I can't see it because of the sharing screen menu is blocking my view, but you all may see above this it says chart tools, and that's because we're dealing with a chart. Anytime you insert something into Excel, and this happens in Word too, but when it's selected, you will see some additional tabs come up. These are known as contextual tabs. A contextual tab is a tab that exists based off of context, contextual tab. And the context in this case is what's selected at that time. So we have a chart selected, so we have the chart tools contextual tabs. That means that this has commands that are specifically to be used to modify or change a chart, or to do something with a chart, I should say. The tab names will tell us pretty much what we can control. We can control the design of the chart, and we can control the format of the chart. So if we take a look here with the design, we can change the chart layouts. So that's where we selected the type of chart we had, or sorry, how it's laid out. Well, chart type will be different, but the layout. So like for instance, where the axis is, where does this legend appear? It could appear on the side, things like that. Add more chart elements. Maybe we want a title on the side of the vertical axis, and maybe we want a title down here. You could add different chart elements to make modifications there. Changing its colors, which we are actually going to do. We're going to select, it says select color 5. So I'm going to get the 5th one here. And there are tons of different ones you guys can see. Okay. And then chart styles. Notice that chart styles is actually the entire name of this group, the whole group, not just these guys, but these are our different styles. And we were told to select style 6. Now, if you hover over this first one, it says style 1. So you probably can assume this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And guess what? That's exactly correct. I see that because of the screen tip. And Excel understands how you're doing that. So I'm going to select style 6 because that's what the instruction said. I will tell you though that there are times where it will be like, hey, select style 4 or whatever, and you will be like, oh, okay, I'll just count up here real quick, and you won't look at the screen tip to know for certain because you'll just be so sure. But it'll actually be in the wrong spot because maybe it'll start somewhere else, right? So in this case, if I thought that this was in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I come over here and select this one, but really this is style 14. You want to be very careful with that. If the instructions are to select style 6, you want style 6, not style 14. But many a times what you'll see is that these have a drop down, and this button is called more. If you ever see something that says click the more button, this is what it means. It appears in multiple areas, and all it does is allow you to see more of whatever you're in. So in this case, we can see all of the different chart styles at once. So it'll be clear for you to count up to 6 or to hover over each one to see if it's exactly what you are asked to have. Now, I've been asked before as well in this class, does it really matter what style I pick? Can I pick what style I want? I mean, if this was the real world, I would. Yes. The reason why it has specific styles is because it makes grading easier for me. That's the honest truth. If you ever run into an issue where you are completely 100% certain that the style that was asked for does not exist. For instance, like we were asked to change colors to color 5, and I said, okay, that's the 5th one. That may not be obvious to you. Hopefully it will be now because I've gone over it here, but it may not be obvious to you. And to be 100% honest, some of your Excels may actually say color 5. So you won't even have to worry about, oh, well, which one is color 5? But as you can see, mine's doesn't, but I just know that's the 5th color. In this case, what you could do is you would just make a quick note, and when you submit your assignment in the comment, you would say, hey, I could not find color blah, so I picked this thing. Just tell me if you had to pick something different. Some of you may have seen some of that happen in some of the discussions already in the FAQ about do you have to print out the show formulas Excel file? Do you need to send that to me? You don't have to send that to me, but you could. You could put it on along with what I asked if you really wanted to, so you can see what it looked like when you print it out and when you submit it. But in regards to someone else, I think I mentioned about how the pixels, sometimes the pixels won't fit perfectly on your screen, and that's because of how your screen is set up by its display settings. And that's okay. You could tell me, hey, I tried to use the pixel sizes that the textbook and you asked me to do, but it didn't look well on my screen, so I increased it. If you let me know that, then I know going in when I grade it that that's what happened. Otherwise, I just assume that you didn't follow the directions, or maybe you didn't see it. So the only way I can truly know is if you let me know. If you make a change, if you want to make a change like this, because in the end of the day, like I said, in real life, it wouldn't really matter what style you pick, unless like your company had a certain theme going on. Like at South Mountain, we use more orange and gray. We used to use more blue and white, but there was a change. So if I do something in regards to South Mountain, the colors I pick are going to be closer to that. Um, so okay, so that is our change of style. If we really wanted to like say switch our data around or make changes to our data that's being displayed within this chart, this is where I would do that. There's a quick way to switch column and rows, which can be very helpful, for instance, for what we have here. You guys don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you what it does. But click that. Notice how these switch places, kind of like what I was talking about before. And I mentioned how cluster column charts were great because of this. It makes it easier for you to make this switch. So if you're in a presentation and you want to show people this, you could very easily just go boop, because it may make more sense for people to see what happens each month. Like say you're talking to the big wigs of a company, you're gonna want to show them what happens each month. They might not be caring about each, or sorry, yeah, they may not care about each state. But if you go this way, some states may be in competition with one another, or maybe they may be saying, well, which one do we need to close? Well, looking at this, Delaware is always really low, so they may say, okay, we can close Delaware and keep the other 3 open, because they can see consistently, more easily consistently that that Delaware is always lower than all the others. Or maybe they give New York a prize for having great sales the entire time. Okay, but this is how you would do that. All right. If we wanted to say, you know what, I'm tired of looking at cluster column chart, I'm going to change this to a pie chart. This is where I could do that. It brings back up that chart type selection menu. So in this case, the change chart dialog box. Anything that appears as another box on Excel is called a dialog box. The name of that dialog box will be here. And then they have their own tabs as well sometimes. So if you ever see something that says go to this certain dialog box, this is what it means. A dialog box should pop up, have its name here, and they may tell you to go to a certain tab. But if I wanted to change the type, this is where I would do that. And then this last guy we'll use a lot later, and I suggest you use it in your own personal life whenever you're doing something with Excel. Move chart in the location group. What this does is it literally allows you to move the chart to another location. So I can move it to a specific tab in the sheet. Um, yeah, or I can make it be its own sheet. So that's a common used one. A lot of times, sometimes people make the mistake of putting it inside of another sheet instead of moving it to be its own complete sheet. And sometimes people will try to copy and paste it and stretch it out. That's not what you want to do. A lot of times you want to move it to be its own sheet. And we'll see that later. Okay. So any questions about charts? No? Okay. All right. So let's move on then here. So now we're going to talk about spark lines. We're going to make some changes in a trend here. So normally when people talk about trends, it's a way for you to see what's happening, right? I'm not talking like city trend, like the store, but trend, and like fads or um, yeah, like everyone is doing. I'm not really current on stuff right now, but okay, like everyone's getting a really cool mask right now. That's a trend, mask or a trend right now, which is true. So you will see if you wanted to display that graphically, you would probably do some kind of line chart or even a column so you could see that. Oh, you see a trend that the mask number of people that wear masks is going up. So that would be a way for you to look at a trend. Well, instead of making these big charts all the time in order for people to display data and be able to visually see changes, there is another way to do so. We can make smaller ones that will appear within our cells. And so to do that, we insert what's known as a sparkline. Um, so I just remember someone reminded me that I said that I would show you guys what would go wrong if you didn't select this when you selected your data to make a chart. So I apologize that I did not do that. I will do that now. So let's say we selected everything but A3. So if I selected these guys and then held down control and selected the others, and I tried to insert a chart based off that, recommendations aren't even made available because it doesn't know what to do. Because again, that A3 was not selected a part of it. It says containing too many cells. These are different reasons why things could have gone wrong, which in this case, actually, none of these are correct. None of those are the reason why it can't figure it out. But if I went to all charts, I can still get a cluster column chart. And you will notice too that it actually looks exactly like what I need. The only issue is it doesn't have, like, look, it threw New York down here at the it threw New York down there as a legend. It doesn't even have a graph for it. But the state should be where it has 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if I were to have inserted this, I'll just click OK so you guys can see it. What I would have had to do is I would have had to go in here and make changes to it. And you can't just click on it and type and make that change. Look at it what this is later. I would have to have gone up here to select data and go and say, okay, this is this New York thing shouldn't be here, so I'm going to remove it. And then these guys aren't supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. What are they supposed to be? Okay, they're supposed to be these things. So now it's correct. That was a lot more work than what we did earlier by selecting this guy too. Okay, so I just want I said I would do that. Thank you for the person that reminded me to go over that again, showing the difference on why you want to select that. And again, it's to make it easier for yourself. So you want to select from A3 over, not just the pieces that are going to go into the chart, because that helps Excel know that these two, the columns and rows, are related to each other. Okay, I'm going to delete that other one. Oh, wait. Ooh. Okay. All right. So to the spark lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select B4 through D7. and I'm going to insert a Sparkline. Now you will notice that when I select things, especially multiple cells within Excel that have data, I sometimes get this quick analysis icon. I'm going to show what this looks like. We'll use it more later, but this has in it kind of like a toolbar that says, okay, here are the commonly used commands when people select data. And so when people select data, they usually change the formatting, the conditional formatting. Sometimes they insert a chart. They take totals like sums, averages, counts, things like that. They sometimes insert tables, and they insert Sparklines, the thing that we're talking about. This is how you could insert a Sparkline. You can select your data and do that. But notice where it's putting it, because it tends to put it right next to where the data is, and that's not the right spot. You guys just take a look at there. It's putting it right behind all the E's. So what I actually want to do is I want to do this formally. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, where we saw earlier that there was a Sparklines group, and I'm going to select line. So line Sparkline. It says, hey, this is the data that's selected before the D7. It then says, where do you want these Sparklines to be placed? The quick analysis put it in E. We want to put it in F. Yes, I can explain that again. Actually, I'll just cancel this and do it again. So I'm going to select my data, B4 to D7, and I want to insert a line Sparkline. If I use the quick analysis tool, I want you to take a good look at what happens in column E. If I try to use the quick analysis tool to do so, where is it going to put it? It's going to put them in E, and that won't fit with what we want to do. We want them to end up in F. That's why it says trend on it. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to go to the Sparklines group, click line. Get a Create Sparklines dialog box. It says choose the data that you want. We already selected it before we came here, so B4 to D7 is already populated. But if I wanted to, I could have typed that in here. And then it says to choose where you want the Sparklines to be placed. We want them to be placed from F4 to F7. So I could type that in if I wanted to, or I could select it. If you click this guy here on the side, it'll move it up so that you can see better. But that here. Okay. And when I click OK, it creates Sparklines. And so these lines follow the trend of what was happening in the data that was selected. So for instance, if we go to F4, well, let's take a look at what happens on row 4 from October, November, December. Well, the sales went up, and they went up again, but not as much. If you take a look at the Sparkline here, the sales went up, and they went up again, but not as much. Down here, for New Jersey, look what happened. It went down, and then it went back up. This went down and went back up. This went up and then back down, up, down. This went up and back down, up, down. These are following along the trend that it sees there. And it so pretty much is putting like mini charts within that cell. That's what a Sparkline does. So notice with the Sparklines though, it may be kind of hard to see because they're just lines. I mean, we can kind of tell what's happening, but it's kind of hard to see. Well, what we can do is with the Sparkline selected, we get a Sparklines tool contextual tab. Remember, every time you insert something that you can make modifications to, you will get contextual tabs for it. If you look in the show group, so this would be a group based off of what is shown, we can have it show the highest point, and notice it'll put a little marker, it'll put a marker there to show the highest point. We can show the lowest point, and I'll put a marker there for us to see the lowest point. Negative points, so that are below a certain threshold. which we don't have any in this case, the first point, the last point, and if we want to show all kind of markers, so any available markers. So in this case, we want to show all markers because it makes it easier for us to view what's occurring. And we also are going to make changes to its Sparkline style. So the instructions say to go to this Design Contextual tab in the Style group, to click on More. I told you guys this is the More button. And click on Sparkline Style Accent 1 Darker 25. Notice that these guys are in a different row completely than where some of these other ones are. So you wouldn't be able to follow along like we did in the other one where we were able to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can't do that here. It even starts in a different spot. So I'm going to look for Sparkline Accent 1 Darker 25. If I start up here, because it said Accent 1 and how long I've been doing this, I knew to start up at the top. And then we could go from there. We can keep looking. But in this case, it says Sparkline Accent 1 Darker 25. It's 50. It's darker 50. All of these are darker 50. You'll notice that. So accent 1, come down here again, accent 1, darker 25. This is exactly the one we want. So I'll do that again. Sparkline accent 1, darker 25%. I'm not sure what that is. Let me start at the beginning and see what happens. This says accent 1, darker 50. This says accent 2, darker 50. Accent 3, darker 50. So that means as I go across, I'm moving up in my accent number. Let me go down here. Now I see darker 25 and then accent 1 as well. So this must be the one I want. Okay. With another thing to note with Sparklines, there are different types of Sparklines. The line, column, and win-loss. So column will make pretty much like many these guys would appear in here. I don't like column, and I'll show you guys why. Well, there are times when I like column. Rephrase that, but I wouldn't. In this case, would not be one of them, and I'll show you why. So again, this is something that you wouldn't have to do, but I want to show you what it looks like. If I insert a column, and I'm just going to put them in G. Okay. The reason I don't like column as much is because whatever the lowest one is, even though these guys are fairly close in size, right? Especially compared to these, whatever the lowest is, it puts it pretty much as just a straight line at the bottom because that's the lowest possible one. And what it tends to do, this actually looks a little better. Maybe they've made some enhancements to this, but whatever the highest one is, they throw it until it hits the top of the column. And so sometimes it's hard for people to see because they just see here's a line here and this one's like way up. Or sometimes if these numbers are all real close, you'll see just a bunch of them way up in the air and it just looks like the whole cell got colored in. This was a lot. I'm gonna assume they made some updates to it because this is a lot better than any other time I've ever used it. You can clearly see the distinction, and this is what the purpose of this was supposed to be when you did column Sparklines, so that you can see a clear difference, just like you could with these. That, like in this case, it's going up and then it continues going up. This goes up and it continues going up. Okay. And then there's also the win-loss Sparkline. And so what the win-loss does, it looks at our positive changes and negative changes. I can show you guys that again as well, just so you can see what it looks like in this case. So I'll put this in H4, H7. So they're all the same. They're all up because we got all wins because all our cells are positive. There were no losses. So, yeah. All right. Get rid of those. That was just to show you guys an example. All right. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I gotta get rid of group another way. Okay. All right. I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay. So, any questions about Sparklines? Did I hit your question? All right, cool. All right, so for the last part here, we want to talk about how to print things out. Pay very close attention to this because this is where most people lose points. Um, you won't actually print anything out, but I mentioned in that FAQ question about printing that there are certain changes they make within print that will affect your Excel file, and so those are important, but the actual printing out of things is not important. So the first thing is in our instructions, it asks for us to center the data and chart horizontally on the page. So the first thing that most people do is they try to click on these things and go to center. Oh, I can't do that. Well, what does it mean to center the data and chart horizontally on the page? Well, we need to make modifications to page layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to page layout, and all of these things are in the page setup group. All of these are ways I can affect how things appear on a page. So how they appear on a page would be affecting how they're printed. So I tend to go here to the corner here and click this button. So this, some people call this a more button as well. But what this is actually doing is it launches a dialog box. So remember, a dialog box was the menu that pops up in front of Excel. So if you hover over it, the screen tilt will tell you what the name of the dialog box will be. So this will be the page setup dialog box, which makes sense because it's the page setup group. When I click on it, all of these commands are within these tabs somewhere. So this is where I can make a change to orientation. I could have also done so there. This is where I could change how things are scaled. Notice there's a scale to fit group right next to page setup. I can change the type of paper that things are being printed on here. I can do that in print area and the quality. Margins have to deal with how much space you have on the top before you print. Also dealing with where's your space for your header and footers for the left and the right. But also we get this other option, which may be different for many of you that may be used to doing something in Word. You have the option to center things on the page horizontally and vertically. I pay close attention to the makeshift cell workbook that's here, or cell sheet, I guess I should say. If I click on horizontally for center, notice what happens to it. It moves over and it's centered on the left and right. If I were to do vertically, the same thing would happen, but vertically. It centers it vertically with the same amount of space above it and below it. Most of your instructions will say center horizontally. Majority students will not do it. I don't want you to be those students. Center it horizontally. Well, why does it matter? It matters because it looks better. It looks more appealing. And I want you to get used to doing so because when you print things out for a presentation or whatever, or to send, even to send it to someone that may print it, or if you were to print it out as a PDF and send that to someone, it's gonna look really weird with a bunch of extra space on the right side. If you have it centered horizontally, that doesn't happen. It looks direct. It looks as if it's directly in the middle, and people want things to be in the middle. Well, why not center it vertically as well? Because sometimes that'll look weird, right? If you have a bunch of extra space above and below, it's like why didn't that just up at the top? Think about how we read. We read from left to right, top to bottom. So this makes more sense for this to be up here and to be centered so that left to right doesn't look more confusing to us. It doesn't draw more attention to one side than the other. So the second thing that you're going to be doing like on every assignment is modifying the footer. There will be times where you're asked to change the header, but every assignment you'll be asked to change the footer. So every project you'll have to change the footer. Well, some people will go here and they'll say, okay, I like this one. This looks like a good one to do. Or I like this one. I'm gonna pick this as my footer. No, I'm gonna pick this. Well, you are instructed very specifically to use a custom footer. So you will click custom footer change the footer. And within said custom footer, what will you do? You will, in this case, it says insert a file name in the footer. That tends to be in the left section. So if I don't know how to insert a file name, well, I will show you. Let's say I didn't know either. I can hover over each of these commands to figure out which one is a file name. It's going to be the one over here. But I can go through these to try to figure out which one it is. Insert number of pages, insert date, insert time, insert file path. Oh, there's insert file name. Well, let's just see what the others are too. The sheet name and then picture. So yes, you can insert a picture in the footer. So some people do that kind of as their signature sometimes. They'll put their face. This is how you would do that. You could take a picture of yourself and then put your face in the footer. But we want the file name. And if you're used to it, you'll notice that every time it's the same here. It's just the ampersand symbol or the and symbol. And then within square brackets, they type file. And all of these are in that same similar format. And it's just kind of a coding way to say, go get the file and put it here. When I click OK, you'll notice that it does put the file name right there. Now, there may be other times where they tell you, this is generally how every project will be asked to change the footer. You'll do custom footer and insert file name. There will be times, though, you're asked to do more than that. But there will always be insert file name in the left section. Okay. And then you have some other things here. You could change the footer to be different on even and odd pages, so alternating, different on the very first page. A lot of people like to use that in the professional world because the first page is like it could be like the title or whatever. And then there's some other changes here as well. We can also navigate to print and print preview from here. I'm going to show you one other thing in that sheet. This will become more prevalent when we get to dealing with larger data that expands over multiple pages. So this is where we can change how things are printed. For we want rows to repeat on top or columns to repeat at the left. So on each page, you want the same thing to be like the first column to be on each page, or if you wanted the top row to be on every page. Those are very helpful. Imagine you had like 600 different records or different rows being used, but the top first row was the only thing that had the column headings. You imagine printing that out. How are you going to keep up with, oh, the first column is this thing? You're going to have to keep going back to the first ones and look at that. Like, it's annoying. This becomes very helpful. So we'll see that more throughout this course as well. So that's everything with that. Yeah, that's everything with page setup. Are there any questions about page setup? Okay. So last thing, most students forget, or actually, it's become a lot less than the first time I taught this. It was seen as not as important. I tried to stress how it was, but in the when you go to the Backstage View, so remember Backstage View, same as clicking File. Under Info, we're gonna change these properties. So a lot of times I tell students to first off just go ahead and click Show All Properties at the bottom. That way you won't be going to look to see which ones you needed to get to. Did we push OK with the yes, we did. Sorry. We clicked OK. You're welcome. So with these properties, we can add a title, which to me is not as important as this guy. Comments can be very important too, but tags are really important because they make it easier for someone to search for things, and it'll be easier for you to search for things later in case you say if you worked at a company or you had just worked on your own, you had tons and tons and tons of Excel spreadsheets and you didn't name them necessarily properly, or the way you named them didn't make it easier for you to find certain things. Or maybe you couldn't remember what you named it, but you tagged this based off what was in it. And most people can remember what they did with something or what they had in something. So adding tags makes it easier for you to find it. So in this case, our tags are quarterly sales. And so I would add quarterly sales into tags. It also says in your instructions to type the subject. I'll be honest, I won't really look at this part that much because I know who you are. I don't have any comment in my. Okay. Um. Oh, did you click show all? Did you click show all properties at the bottom? If I have show fewer, it just disappears. So when you click show all, they all should appear now. Because fewer is what makes it go away. But it's okay if you don't have. It's okay if you don't have the comments part. The tags is the part that's going to be most important. Okay, you found it. Good. So the tags is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm gonna look for in your assignments. I'm not gonna if you have a subject of CIS114 DE and what was the other thing it says in your section number here, you put the 20043 or the 19, whatever it is. I honestly am not gonna care about that. I'm caring about your quarterly sales. The reason being is because this is the part that is going to help you in the future be able to search and find things. And also, if you were to put your stuff on the web, because you can put your spreadsheets up on the web, if the need arises, it will be easier for people to search for things. So, say this was for on the company's internal website or something, um, or on their intranet, and someone needed to find all the quarterly sales stuff. You have tags entered in for all the spreadsheets that say that are about quarterly sales. That's all there. He pulls all those up instead of him trying to go through. We look at everything that may have to do with sales, and this is also why it's important to name things appropriately. But I'm just going to tell you, you're better off with tags than you are trying to search based off names. So the other thing is the author here. You want to make sure that your name is here. So you can make changes to that by adding an author. So I wanted to add myself here. I can do that. And add myself as a new contact. But there I am. Now my name's there. If you turn something into me that has someone else's name, I'm probably going to ask about it. The reason is because people in the past have tried to do so, and it's been someone else in the same class or someone that took the class another semester before. And it's pretty obvious when you see someone else's name there. And there could be times where, oh, I live with that person. Okay, well, are you and I'm using their computer? Okay, well, let's talk about this because I can pull up what they had when I were in my class, and they had the exact same stuff as you. Funny, even that the time it was created is the same as when they created theirs, and it's been some months or a semester. I don't expect anyone to cheat. I'm going to flat out say that, but I do know that those temptations occur. So if you are tempted to do so, talk to me and let's help you get over that temptation and let's help you get through your assignment. But I'm going to look for your author name. Your author name that normally appears is whoever is the owner of the computer and entered themselves as such whenever they first logged in. That's why mine says SMCC here. But you saw I could easily add my name. And so now everyone sees that, oh, I used the SMCC computer, but it was Christopher. So yeah, if it's your personal computer, your name should probably appear on there. You might have even like a nickname or something that appears there, or some people's username for Microsoft. If you're on a Microsoft account, will say something different. Yeah, so yeah, like yours has like a shortening of your name. I'll understand that. Okay, that's you. And I also look at the dates to see that it was created on this day and last modified today. Okay, they worked on this for some time. If I see something that is like start time, end time, like are a minute apart, I'm gonna wonder about that. Another thing, just to be honest with you, and I can look at metadata too. I've caught people before doing all the right changes, even the time wise. They would make one final modification at the end, like type something, save it, and then wait 20 minutes and delete it, uh, and then save it again. I can go look at metadata, and that's the data that's within that talks about the actual file itself, and I could see that it was created from someone else's stuff before. It's crazy the way how far people go to get out of doing their work, but again, I don't expect that to happen. I am really, really expecting that not to happen this semester. Um, and it does nothing but a disservice to you to do so. So, all All right. So after you make those changes with the tags and author, the only thing that is left, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it is actually. It's become very, very useful. Um, yeah, yeah, that's fine. Ask as many questions as you want. That's what I'm here for. If I can't help, I will probably search probably that whole night to try to find something because I'll get interested too. Um, and I have tons of links to videos with so many people that have done so much with Excel, some crazy stuff that you may not even think to be possible, or you wouldn't even think like, why would you need to use that? But they would. Yeah, that's why we're in here. I'm glad. I'm glad you guys are. You want to learn so much about Excel. It's been a while since I've had people so eager. To be honest, it's been about over a year actually. Um, and usually it's people that want to use it for their own business, or they know how important this is going to be for their own career, or they realize that hey, this is kind of fun, and there's a lot of use to this. There's a big need in workspace. Yeah, big need. Um, and I'm doing data analytics right now, which is a big buzzword. But one of my professors like to say a lot of it is, oh, I can draw lines, and oh, I can show you what data means. Like that's the easiest way to explain what it is. But he told us that he's going to show us a bunch of different techniques, but Excel can be used for all of it. I know electrical engineers that they say the new people that come into work hired, they have their TI calculators, and they look at them like they're crazy because they're just going to use Excel. Like it has so much use across so many dimensions. So like every job could use Excel. Every job probably should be using Excel. Uh, and there's some things that there are newer things that are easier to use. For instance, again, if you're an accountant, I know accountants that use Excel all the time. I also know accountants that use QuickBooks because it was made specifically for that purpose. But if you know Excel, you'll be able to handle QuickBooks a lot easier without having to take a QuickBooks class or something like that. So yeah, a lot of great uses. Um, okay, so the last part was they wanted us to kind of just for you guys to see what it looks like when it prints out. So there it is. It's been centered horizontally. There's our footer down there at the bottom. It says 2 pages. That's because of that. I added those extra things that I didn't need to. See, so in our class, they're saying they're an accountant. They use Excel all the time. Uh, You probably will have a lot of examples for us too, then. So feel free to, if you're at liberty to talk about some of those things, that might be fun sometimes. Especially when we look at loan amortization and a couple other things, you might say, "Oh, I've never known I could do that before," because there's some ways that you can have it pre-fill out your whole table for you. Um, so, all right. So you guys will not be required to print. I'm gonna go back to my main view, and I'm going to select A2, F5, and I am going to press Control F2. If this works, it did. Okay, so Control F2. Oh, yeah, the dots on the line graph. I was needing. Yeah, yeah. The trend, the Sparklines are very new for a lot of people. Many people don't use them, and it's funny how it's like in the first lesson that we are really going over, and it comes up like maybe like one or two times later on, but that's about it. But it's something that someone could easily use, and it is very helpful because what part did I select? Oh, I just selected A2 through F5 because that's what it asks for in the instructions. And then I held down the control button and then F2. And they just want you to see that that's how you can print if you wanted to print quickly. It'll automatically launch print preview. The amount I selected really didn't matter except for this. When I go to settings, see how it says print active sheet? The sheet that I was working on just now, that's an active sheet. If I want to though, I could tell it to print just the selection. And so now the part that I selected is the only thing there. So for instance, if I wanted to just show, hey, what's going on with New York and New Jersey, but leave Delaware out of it and Virginia, then I could do this. I could select this stuff and and then just print and go to straight to print preview, change it to print selection. And so now this is the only thing that's being printed. I can also go entire workbook. Yeah, no, it is cool. I have actually had to use that very few times, but every time I have needed to really emphasize something, this is what I would do. Because you can select exactly what you need. You don't have to worry about anything else getting in the way or someone trying to use other data that doesn't really matter to try to disprove your point. You guys do not have to turn this in today. These are for you all. And actually, let me ask you all: would you all prefer to add this as part of your grades or not? Because I can do that. We can take a poll. Because I've wanted to do that in the past, and I have done it in the past, and it actually lowered grades a lot because most people wouldn't turn it in. But they would keep it and they would do it. So yeah, if you're on the online class, I can't ask people to do that. But for those in the live online, I can. So I'll take a quick poll and just ask you guys straight up if you all ask you guys if you all want to do this. What's today? Yes. If you want to do that. Yeah, a lot of you are live online. So do you want to lectures for grade? All right. So the question is, and I sent you a poll: do you want to turn in scripted lectures for grade? So if you're on the live online, you don't have to answer because it won't. Or if you're on the live online, you have to answer. If you're on the online class, you don't have to answer this because it won't affect you really. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
What this means? Does this mean that I need to turn in online?
No, there are two different classes: live online and online. So many of you are signed up for the live online class, and that's why you're
Yes.
here right now, right? So I'm asking. So the question was, can we turn in this scripture lecture? And in the past, I have done that, and it did not. It was not successful. So I'm asking you all if you want to turn this in for a grade.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. For like extra credit, yeah, it would be extra credit towards your this current module. So like if you, let's say you end up getting like a 90 on it, I could just boost it up to 100. I'll probably do like each one be worth 5 points towards the entire module, which might not seem like a lot, but it could make the difference between. Well, actually, yeah, that would make the difference between each letter grade. So you do like 1A, 1B, and 1G, and you get like an 89 out of that. You have these two projects that we did, scripture lectures you turn in, then you're at a 99. I guess I could open it up to the online students as well. Yeah, I could do that. I could totally do that. I can, like I had in the syllabus, I can make any changes needed to be. As I put there's plenty of extra credit, but I can add this in as another option for that because it allows you guys to get more practice too, but it doesn't force anyone to have to do it. So yeah, I can do that. All right. Yeah, it looks like majority. Yeah, majority of people said cool. All right. Okay. Yeah, we got most people say yes. So all right. I guess we're doing that. Yeah, no, thank you guys for asking for it. Like I said, I've done it in the past and it has not gone well. So yeah, I'm totally down to do that. Okay, so in that case, oh, there was only one other thing with this, and we got 2 minutes left, so I'll do that. And so this is more helpful when auditing. Um, what that means is if you needed to, someone needed to go through the spreadsheets and say, okay, did they do this stuff correctly? Well, there's a way to do what's known as show formulas. I know somewhere you had mentioned about these videos being available. Yes, I have it available on Canvas, and I send you an email as well through your student email with a link to it. So I put give you 2 ways to get to the video. So if I wanted to show formulas, this is what it would look like. So I'm going to undo it. Here's my data. I'm going to hit Control, and then the key next to the number 1 is known as tilde. You click that, they'll do show formulas. Oh, we just wanted to make sure I had info. Yeah. Now, how do we turn in? Yeah, I'll open up a space on Canvas for you guys to turn in the extra credit for these scripture lectures. All right, so let's take a look at show formulas. Notice how all the formatting is gone, and notice how all the columns are like super large now, right? We can't even fit everything onto the one page anymore. Show formulas is showing the raw of what's happening here. So this is the data that was entered. Here's the formula that was entered. This is very helpful. Oh, so what did I do? I'll say it again. So I am doing show formulas. And so to show formulas, hold Control, and then the key next to the 1 is a tilde or an accent mark. If you were to click on that key, it will allow you to switch between showing formulas and not showing formulas. Okay, so that's how you show formulas. Control, and then the key next to the 1 on your keyboard. So it looks like a tilde. So controlling that, and now will allow you to show formulas. And so again, it gets rid of all the formatting that you did, but it allows you to see the formulas that are used as well in each cell. So this is helpful when auditing, or if you want to check for yourself. Nope, you don't have to select the cells at all. You just need to be on the sheet. Anywhere on the sheet, and it'll automatically do it. So like, see here, I don't have anything selected. I'm down here. I can be up here. I can select them if I want to as well, and then do it. Doesn't matter. Again, this is important for auditing. So I could, if I wanted to, like for instance, you turn this in, I'm gonna look to see if you actually use cells, or because this actually does happen. Sometimes people will go in and be like, okay, when I saw the video, this was a number that was here. And so they'll go in and just type in 75,201.88 instead of doing the actual formula to find it. I'll just do show formulas to see if they actually did or not. They do the formulas now. So Control and tilde or the accent mark. That's the key next to the number 1. Yep, that one. Tilde. So Control and that. Or this. Looks like an accent mark too sometimes. So, or you may have both on yours. Some keyboards, like one of my keyboards, just has a tilde. Actually, I think all the other ones, yeah, all the other ones have both on there. So, it so we're about 2 minutes over. I'll tell you a funny story about this. The reason they picked this key is because this is the least commonly used key ever on the keyboard. So that's why they picked this for show formulas, because they figured that if this happened to someone on accident, they'd probably freak out and have no idea what happened. So you held down the Control key and then tilde, and nothing happened. Okay. All right. So let's see. I'm gonna work with you to do that. I'm gonna probably try to get accessibility up so I could show you a keyboard on screen to do so. Yeah, it's the button to the left of the one. Uh, it might make it might make a difference on an Apple computer. I don't know that off the top of my head. Let's find out. Show formulas in Excel on Mac. Nope, still is the same thing, a little accent mark. So it should work the same on a Mac computer as well. What was this? Keyboard. So for an image of the keyboard, I can get a big one. Here we go. All right, so this guy right here, this is the button that you should be pressing. So you should press Control, hold down Control, and then hit this button, the one that's right next to the one. So Sandra, that's what you need to do. Control and then the button right next to the one. Hope you can see what that looks like. And that's what you're doing. You're pressing both of those buttons together, Control and that one. Yes, it did it. Okay, sweet, good. Yeah, that'll be probably very helpful to some of you guys too. All right. Um, and just actually, I use to point this out in my other classes. We did it. That's right. Yeah, everyone worked together. And again, I love that. I love how you guys jump in to help each other. Really great. Um, one thing I don't think I've mentioned enough here is that if you don't know how to do something, yeah, you're welcome. Everyone else, I'm sure, is welcome too. Um, but if you don't know how to do something, especially like with the Mac stuff, you can ask me, and I'll try my best to remember to say stuff. So ask like you did here, April. But you can always type in here, like kind of like what I did. Show formulas in Excel on a Mac. Mine's it usually pops up automatically because it's like most usually when I type Excel, uh, any Excel question in my Google, it recognizes that I put on a Mac in here because that's like the most commonly asked thing of me is how do I do this on a Mac? So yeah, I'm not just saying it just for you, just for everyone. Like if it didn't have to even be for a Mac, if you run into a thing where you're like you're not sure how to do something in Excel, um, even though like the book may be telling you to do something, you're like this isn't working that way. Just look here. Because there's tons of ways to do things or to get to stuff. Um, so yeah, okay. Um, oh, for those of you that have a Mac, did you? Yeah, I'll see you guys Thursday. But I forgot to ask those of you that have a Mac, were you able to see the tags? You able to get to that? Okay. You guys can leave. Yeah, it's fine. You can leave. I don't want you to feel like you still have to stay. I'm way over time. Haven't yet. Okay. So when if you have a Mac, when you go up to the top of your screen, like you'll see like that Excel drop down, or sorry, that little gray bar by tab. Um, so if you're on a Mac, you'll see like the little Apple thing, and it says Excel and some other things. If you click on where it says Excel and go to Preferences, um, or Properties, I think it is, you'll be able to add tags there. So add tags. Uh, so, that's in a template. So I want. Um, okay. Tag to properties. There it is. Okay. Oh, that's not the way I want you to do it. Will you open the turn account? Yes, I will. I will do that. I got to create it first, but I will do that. Let's see. Oh, I have. I thought it was one here, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Not tap. April. But if you go to the top, I know it says it sells and there's properties. And then that's where you should be able to add the tags and the subject and stuff like that. Yeah, you can. You all can go. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to hold you guys up. I'm well over.